Dr. Jazz.
But cool, Martin. Thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Of course, yeah. I'm flattered.
No, I love doing this series. It's and I go through my CDs, and I was like, man, I like his music. So
Well, it's amazing you have that music. I mean, what recordings do you have?
Oh, I mean the ECM one. That's Change of Heart.
Okay, yeah. That's useful, isn't it? Because that's the
then I started.
sold the most.
Yeah. Then I started discovering, I'm a huge Mike Outram fan as well. So the hidden diamond of jazz guitar. So,
do you know him? Are you in touch with Mike?
No, I mean, I know. I think we emailed each other once. I don't know what it was, but he's, he should be so much more known. Actually, like
I know he probably will be, but the thing about him is he never does his own thing. Really, occasionally he does little trio gigs with organ and drums.
Yeah.
We said it to him the other day in a rehearsal. Can you got your own? He just laughs. It's fine. He's one of those people. It's like he can fit into any situation. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky to know him.
He's like John Parricelli for me in a way. It's like who's also on so many records, but like not really known in a sense as a leader or in Europe on the continent. So it's quite funny.
It's interesting, isn't it, about those two? I don't. So that John has made just one album under his own name, was it?
I think one, yeah. I have that one. Yeah.
Very nice record. It's just, it's different personality types, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're just like consummate sidemen. They like to be asked all the time, and they could fit into any situation. They're quite different, those two.
Yeah.
They're playing, I think. But both of them are like that. You get called because they can fit into it. They're just great accompanist as well as soloists.
Terrific players. How does your story? I know you've done with Mike many albums, and I saw on your YouTube channel you just recorded recently a new album with a quartet, and I wanted to start this talk with what I've heard from those 10 minutes or 12. Some really, again, beautiful melodies, and you've written. But what about the members, especially with Mike? I know you did many albums, and with Jeff something like, how did you hook up with that quartet?
Maybe I've known Mike 20 years now, maybe even longer. I'm not sure. It might have been Nicky Isles, you probably know, piano player.
Yeah.
So it might have been her that recommended him he was coming down from Manchester. He lived in Manchester, which is the north, I'm sure you know, the north of England. And he'd say he must have been mid-20s or something. I'm older than him, and I think that was it. I don't think I'd heard him. I think it was like a recommendation, and I trusted her, And because she knew him. She was based up in Leeds, and I think Leeds, Manchester, quite close. That's my distant memory. And then I started playing with him a lot at that time. And I had a quartet. You might know some of these players. We didn't actually record an album, did we? No, I had a quartet for a while with Tom Skinner, a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
You know Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to get big now because he plays with those guys from Radiohead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's in some trio with
with Tom York. Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure which one, whether it's Johnny Greenwood or maybe Tom York. I don't keep up with that, but I'm not sure. But then I was on strangely, I was on the Underground, the tube station, and there's a big poster, and it says, the Radiohead people, Tom Skinner. What? I started playing with him when I was 18, when he was 18.
Oh, wow.
That's a whole other side story. But so I did have a band with Mike Outram, Tom Skinner, Mick Hutton, great bass player, who's on that ECM album.
Mm-hmm.
And did I record an album with him? No, that was with John Parricelli. That was maybe the last thing I did with John. And then I had a band with Mike, Tom Herbert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Probably know, and Tom Skinner. And Tom and Herbert and Tom Skinner had grown up together. They had the
band, right? What was Acoustic Alchemy? That was their band, no? Or
Sorry, which band?
They had a band together, right?
Yeah, they've always had bands. I just can't remember. They had one with Dave Akumu, the guitar player you might know.
Yeah. But shit, what's the name of that one? Anyway, yeah.
Yes, I've forgotten it as well. But they did have a band. They played together loads. And how did I know Tom then? I can't remember how that happened. Anyway, so we started playing, and I did loads of gigs with them. But then, and I love that band, Mike, Tom Herbert, and Tom Skinner, and they must have been young in their late 20s or something, early. And there's a time when the generation gap is too much, and they're moving on to their new thing, so they resigned, at some point. I was really upset about it, because I used to go around Tom's house and play duo with him for ages when he was very, very young. He's very special, that guy. I talk about this quite a lot. He's one of the very few who didn't go to music college in the last 30 years. In jazz. This is another subject that I'm interested in because I teach at colleges. I have done for a long time, since the beginning almost of some of the jazz colleges, and it's good. I enjoy it. It's great, but there is this thing sometimes with people who haven't been. Yeah, I agree. Maybe they're more individual. Anyway, he was great, and then funnily enough, his mother, who did a prom. She's a classical piano player. Did a prom when she was pregnant with him, like 8 months pregnant with him. The Rite of Spring, I think she was doing, or something. And that's his favourite piece. Tom always told me that. And then I started playing with her because I did classical saxophone at college. Yeah, I've read that. Yeah, interesting. Which I didn't really know anything about. It was just that I managed to get into college because there are no other saxophone players going there. And then like years later, I played with her. We did a couple of classical concerts, which was petrifying. Like an hour of totally written music. Yeah, that was 20 years ago. Anyway, that's a diversion. So Mike, that's what I remember about Mike coming down from Manchester, and I've really played with him in almost all of my projects. I try and get him in, playing Charlie Parker music. Yeah, I love that one. Yeah, that's a nice one. Oh, thanks. And playing all my own music. Then they've got an Indian Arabic thing that I like, music, and we just started. I've had different people in that over the years, and I've just started rehearsing that again, and with him in it. Yeah, I think there's probably other things I could say, but there's quite a longevity thing with Mike. I like that generally. I like playing with the same musicians for a long period of time to develop the language. Yeah, something. Yeah. And John Parricelli John would have preceded Mike. John's my generation. He's maybe a year younger than me, and so I grew up around that Loose Tubes generation, which you probably know those people. Of course, Julian was in it, and I dipped in that band quite a lot. I was never in it. Unfortunately, it was a shame. It's one of those decisions in life. Someone gave me this teaching thing on Monday evenings, and I was committed to that. And then Graham Collier, don't know whether you know who he was. Yeah, sure. Wow, your research is very impressive. I mean, I love the music, man. I'm just like. This is great, Samo. I'm the same as you. I mean, I'm like digging. Yeah. I want to get the whole picture. I want to go back. I ask students when I teach, I say to them, tell me 5 people on your instrument who are over the age of 50 in England. They can't do it. Oh, man. They have no history, no sense of history. And they know famous Americans, Chris Potter or Mark Turner, I'm talking saxophone players or somebody else, Brad Meldau, and they can't name the history that they're within. So I'm trying to encourage. Even on their own instrument, I know it's scary. Yeah. Like, saxophone players, they don't go back anymore to Coleman Hawkins, Ben Webster, Paul Gonzalez, just to check the history. It's like I do that and I transcribe it or listen, just as a guitarist. Right. So yeah, I don't get that. It's really, I mean, it's nice. I love Mark and let's say Chris. They're geniuses, but they did their homework. They checked everything, so it's like. Oh, you're cutting out a bit, Samo. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm saying that Chris and Mark, they did their homework. They checked all those guys from the past, of course. So it's it's funny. Sorry, digression here, but yeah. No, it's all important, isn't it? I mean, it's that thing of check out who they checked out.
Yeah.
Listen to who they listen to. And a lot of players, great players, say that, don't they? They say, you know, Michael Brecker used to say that, I think. Check out who he listened to. Stanley Tarantino or Gene Ammons or someone.
Yeah, but if you love the music also, you would do it, right? I mean, I don't know. I love taking, you know, that, what is it, Penguin Guide to Jazz, you know, the Brian Morton book, and Richard Cook, and I just like, you know, read the, you know, discographies. Oh man, you know, I don't know, Paul Chambers did this album with Red Garland. I didn't know that, and it's stuff like that. It's just like funny. Anyway.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I love all the connections. I mean, I think there's something about, for me, it was, I used to go to record shops. Maybe you're old enough to do that as well when you're younger.
Sure.
And the liner notes make it, they're not all great, but they make connections, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, I loved my favorite were Ornette Coleman's, because he wrote his own ones. You remember those albums where he wrote his own? But you know, a lot of the others, they were interesting to me. And oh yeah, they recorded 6 months earlier with this person. Blah, blah. Yeah, I love all that. You know, and I think that unfortunately, the young people, they're missing out on.
It's lost. Yeah.
Because I also asked them, right, who's on the album? What you're listening to? Oh no, I don't know. I just see the picture of the piano player or saxophone player. What year was it recorded? You know, I mean, some are interested, but you know, I'm just encouraging that kind of.
Yeah, that should be it. They should do that more. But it's, I think, the time we live in. You know, they go to Spotify or one of the other streaming platforms, which doesn't say who the band members are, and you know, then you just don't do the research. You're just like, a new album, like play, okay.
Well, it's killed it. I mean, I'm really against it. Spotify.
Yeah, I want to ask you also about, you know, I know you've done your own label, so I want to dig into this a little bit later.
Yeah, well, let's do that as well. But maybe I should say something about John, because you did ask about John Parricelli.
Yeah.
I never play with him now, and he does play what you'd call jazz with people, but he's in another world. You know, it's like a film music, loads of film. Oh, he's an incredible studio player.
Yeah,
he's on everything.
Yeah. Really? Like also for other kinds of music.
Yeah. Sorry, say that again.
Like not jazz only, but like the other stuff as well, or.
Oh yeah, you know, loads. Well, mainly the film things, but I'm sure he does some. He's like, there's somebody else I played with a lot was Paul Clarvis, who's a drummer, percussionist, and I had that band Fever Pitch in the 90s, and that's the beginning of that Indian Arabic thing, and Paul encouraged me with that, actually, free percussion. But he's another one. Paul and John. Paul even more is totally in that studio world completely. You know, so much at one time a few years ago, they had to book a session with him at 8 in the morning. You know, because he was so busy. So when you go and see a Hollywood film, he's him playing ethnic percussion. You know.
Wow, interesting.
And John's on loads of those, and a lot of the music's recorded in London, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know that much about it, but I sometimes go to the cinema on it. It's John Parricelli and Paul Clarvis are on it. You know.
Interesting.
And so I love playing with John. He's a fantastic musician, very, very giving. If I have to say, it's not really a criticism, but Mike for me has more Charlie Parker in him. You know, he has more. John's thing was not so much that. Mike knows more tunes, you know. John's thing is very different. Usually more original music with people.
Yeah.
They can play standards, it's fantastic.
Oh, sure.
But Mike and I were talking recently, and both of us every now and again have a Charlie Parker obsession or get into it. And I seem to do that every few years. And we've both gone deeper recently. And he did it when he had loads of time off recently. He transcribed all these Charlie Parker tunes, you know, and sent it to me, and I've done the same thing. I've done loads of solos, so that's great. I love that connection with him, and I was thinking we should just do a Charlie Parker band again. That was my band before, but as he's done so much work on it now, I was thinking let's try and see if I can get him to make it a joint band, you know, and he maybe will get a gig as well. So that's Mike, you know. But John's beautiful. I love John as well, you know. I mean, very, very lucky to have played with those two. And I have to say this, and there are other guitar players I've played with, and totally different is Colin Oxley, who's did a duo album. I love playing with it. That's like playing with Jim Hall or someone, or it's that he's got these much narrower parameters of music, and sometimes I really like that. I should just not write any original music, just try and play standard really well, like he does, you know.
Mm.
So that's really nice as well, you know.
Yeah,
for me.
sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that about your music. You're like really, you know, went to Parker, went to original stuff, went to Indian, you know, the Itchy Fingers, the fusion is kind of with horns. I love the sound of that, by the way. It's so funny. I
Which
listen to
one?
like, you
Which
know,
one?
the Itchy Fingers stuff.
Oh wow, Itchy Fingers, amazing. You know about that as well.
You know, the sound of it, because it's so, you know, late 80s and you can hear it.
That's nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Samo, that's nothing to do with me. But it is of its time as well.
Yeah, but the music is
was-
beautiful, you know, the arrangements are fantastic for horns.
Well,
and-
that's Mike Mower, he really was the leader of that band. Although we felt it was a cult, as if early on it was Mike that wrote 90% of the music.
Oh, really?
The other two wrote some things, and I didn't really write anything at that time. I'm not so great or even that interested in writing things that are just not lead sheets most of the time, you know, because I want to get straight to the improvising. And you know, I've got some people. This really young guy, fantastic student at the Royal Academy of Music, very special guy who's arranging my music for big band now.
Oh wow, fantastic!
He started doing that, and I play in the London Jazz Orchestra, and they're quite hard taskmasters, the people who kind of lead that. Scott Stroman and Noel Langley, great lead trumpet player. Said, yeah, all right, let him bring some stuff in. And he brought it in. They thought, wow, that's like incredible. So that's so nice, you know, that's going to be another project one day, you know, I'm going to try and get to a big band.
Yeah, that would be beautiful. Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. Well, what about Jeff Williams? You know, I'm such a huge fan. You have like all these underrated cats in your quartet. Like, but
so
what about
interesting. That's so interesting you said that. Maybe it's like we're all attracted to each other or something, you know. We don't get any recognition. The non-recognition band. I mean,
that's a good name.
I mean, Jeff's done a lot of stuff, but he's a very interesting person, isn't he? I mean,
oh man,
yeah. So that's another thing where I went to Banff Center for the Arts in 1990 in Canada, and
oh really?
Yeah, and I can't remember. I tell you who recommended that, and you probably know him, Ronan Guilfoyle.
Yeah. I mean, I love. We did an album together this year. Like it's coming out next year.
Oh well,
I love Ronan. He's super.
He's a special guy as well, isn't he? So he's really got his own path and the acoustic bass guitar and all this stuff. And I was with Itchy. See if I can get this story right. I was with Itchy Fingers. So this is in the 80s, and I could earn my living from that band. It's incredible. You know, at that level, we're playing loads of festivals all over the place. Ronnie Scott's 2 weeks.
Really?
You know, like it never happened now. I can't get a gig there now. I actually can't get a gig. Anyway, it's another story. But so I went to Banff. I think Ronan had been the year or 2 or 3 years before, and Dave Holland was the head of it. And he really loves Dave. You know, early on, that was, I would say, his big influence. And Steve Coleman was playing with Dave around that time, you know.
Yeah.
And I was really interested in that and Steve's thing, and I didn't pursue it actually, but I'll tell you the story. And so Ronan, so you got to go to Banff. It's life changing. A month course, African drumming and dance the first week with Abraham and Zinnia. From Ghana, I think. And you know, and that year it was Steve Coleman was the head of it, not Dave Holland, and it was the only year I think he did. Maybe Kenny Wheeler was there.
Oh man,
I mean, special people, right? Marvin Smitty Smith, Rufus Reed, Kevin Eubanks, Robbie Eubanks, Stanley Cowell.
Really? Oh wow.
Stanley Cowell, yeah. Interesting choice, right? From what I remember, that was and I went with Julian's brother, Steve.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
And so I used to play with Steve a lot. Loads at that time. He's on
your first album, right?
He's on my first one, isn't he? No, he's on the second, first two. With
John,
John and Steve Watt.
Yeah.
First one's called In Our Time, the second one's called Trust.
Yeah.
I can attest you on all this.
Yeah, it's like it's like 1994, recorded in April. Sorry, I got it. You know?
Wow. It's so impressive. It's so lovely to meet you.
You too.
So, In Our Time, my first one was the intro. And where was I going with this? Where was I
Oh,
going?
the Banff with Steve.
Oh yeah, Banff. So I went and I can remember it now because 1990, and Steve was playing with Dudu Pukwana. You know him?
Yeah, the South African UK kind of
alto
revival thing. Yeah, was it happening?
Yeah, the South Africans came. It's about half a dozen of them came.
Yeah,
Blue Notes came in the 60s, and they really had a big influence on the London scene.
Yeah.
You know, great. And I grew up with listening to a lot of those people. And Steve was playing with Dudu, and Dudu died the day before. And I heard about it. I'd heard about it before Steve. I'd heard about it. I thought, what's Steve going to do? And Steve rang me up, crying that night. And I don't think I can go. And I think I don't know what happened. Maybe I said, "Oh, you got to come." You know, blah blah blah. Maybe he put the phone down, and he called back to say, "Yeah, I'm definitely going to go." And we went to Banff together. We were in the same room for a month, and just on about him, that changed his life because he then moved to France immediately.
Yeah.
Pretty much after that, he was really hanging out with Ben Mardell, a prepared piano guy.
Yeah, I love him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great, isn't it? And Guillaume Ortiz, alto player.
Yeah.
Oh, you know him as well. He's still playing.
The quartet, you know that band Quartet?
I know of it. Yeah, who's in that one?
It's Guillaume and
is it with Benoit or is it no piano?
Yeah, it's Benoit. Yeah, sure. And but who's on drum? Yeah, I think it's Steve on drums actually,
is it? Were they formed at Banff? Maybe it's that bass player, Joe.
Somebody. Yeah, but check it out. It's a really nice group because they go like this composed stuff, quite heavy, and then they go into free improv in between. It's beautiful. I mean, anything Benoit does for me, it's like I love this stuff.
Are they still going?
Yeah. They just I think I talked with Benoit like a couple of months ago, and they I think just recorded something new. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, something else to check out. Thanks.
Yeah.
So Banff. So I went to Banff, and I was older than I was 32 then. I was older than most students. And for some reason, I hit it off with Ethan Iverson, who was 17 at the time.
That's how you hooked. Yeah, okay. I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah, because how did that connection with him? Yeah, just go on. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why, but we seemed to get on there, and people formed little partnerships. And a guitar player called Tony Wilson, you might not know, from Vancouver.
No,
I've got you. There's someone you don't know. Check him out, Tony Wilson.
Tony Wilson.
Yeah, he Vancouver is from, and I got on with him very well at the time as well. And we played duo, I think, and maybe trio. Ethan and Tony Malaby was there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we played together quite a lot. Yeah,
and Ralph Alessi was there. It was quite an amazing year, actually. All those people. Andy Milne, who ended up playing with Steve Coleman, he was Canadian.
Yeah,
that's right. And there are others. I mean, it'll come to me in a minute. So the various things that happened. The two big things for me were Steve Coleman didn't use any music the whole month. Everything was by ear. Right. So I'm a kind of late developer, really, but I was doing things by ear anyway. But wow, this is even deeper, everything. And there's one other incident that I always tell people about students about. So Rufus Reid was taking an ensemble in an afternoon. The course is set up. You go to Steve in the morning for saxophone, not really saxophone lessons, but whatever he does. It's funny, a group of saxophone, but I mean Steve, who I actually love, but he was a little bit of a pain in the arse then. He was younger, right? And I've been in touch with him on and off over the years, And it's a really giving person on one side, but then I think a couple of things. And Seamus Blake was there.
Oh wow, okay, awesome.
Seamus Blake was like 17 or 18. I was like, wow. Like one night it sounded like Sonny Rollins, next night it sounded like Joe Henderson, next night it's somebody else, Joe Lovano. Wow, he's assimilated so much at such a young age. This is incredible. But Steve wouldn't have it, right? So we go and play Green Dolphin Street or something with Steve, all around the room, 4 bars each, unaccompanied. And he wouldn't have anyone playing any cliches. He didn't want it at all. And I could just remember Shane was just walking off and never coming back. Something like that. It's a funny little story, you know. And then he had someone else in tears, Steve. Yeah, so it was a bit brutal at times. And I think he's tempered it a bit now. But it was an interesting experience. He didn't want cliche. Then he played everything by ear. Then Rufus Reid in the ensemble in an afternoon, he said, right, let's all play a tune just to warm up something we know. And we all agreed on Invitation, you know, that song. We're playing away. And he stopped it and he said, what's the chord in that bar? And I said, oh, it's that. He said, no, it's not. I played with Joe Henderson, Stan Getz. He reeled off the list of people he played with. And I remember, because I'd learned the tune from a real book.
Real book, sure.
Like rubbish, right? So it's like 80% correct, maybe. Some of them, luckily, 90%. And from that moment, that was the end of the real book thing. So I was a really late developer in that situation, you know. So that's really big for me now, you know, learning, as it has been for a lot since then. 30 years. Learning tunes from recordings, get at least 5 versions, ignore the real book stuff, see what the tradition of that tune is in jazz.
Yeah.
And if you want, I'm not hardline, I'm not like Michael Kanan or Peter Bernstein, you know, these people who get the original sheet music.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, that's another level, and that's fine, it's great. I don't really do that, so I'm not on quite at that level with the standard song. So I go with the jazz tradition, but also listen to singers do it as well. You know, that's what.
Yeah, and the lyrics, and yeah, sure, all of that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that was a big wake up. Yeah, I haven't been taking it seriously, have I? You know, I wasn't the only one like that, by the way. There's probably everyone there, actually. But it was, oh my God, of course. Thanks, Rufus. So they were the two main waking up things for me. And Steve was great, because if you were into his thing or just wanted to talk about music, you know, like a 3-hour one-to-one with him or something, where he played Just Friends, Charlie Parker solo first, you know, he knows that music inside out.
Sure, yeah, sure.
So I really like him, you know. So just watch the 2-hour interview. Maybe you saw that one. I can't remember who the guy was. The recent Steve Coleman interview, and that's really fascinating. So
really, I have to check it out. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I'll send you. I can't remember who the guy is. It's a Harlem organization. I can't remember which one.
Okay, I'll write it down.
Quite recent, I think. Yeah. So he's hours of fascination, and you know that thing he did on Charlie Parker was he's the dozens. Yeah. So he's got, you know, it's great. He's got his own path. So it's nice that I know him, and every now and again I'll email him a Charlie Parker question. I say, have you heard, what's this whole tone phrase that Charlie Parker plays in these live gigs in the late 40s, early 50s? Do you know what he's doing going on? And he sends me back a huge email, PhD answer. Yeah, he said, I was listening to Johnny Hodges and I nearly had a heart attack because he played the same phrase that Parker played. 1937 with Lionel Hampton, and Parker had stolen it and then regurgitated it in his own way. And that's what he said. Sonny Rollins called Parker a quoting fool. And he didn't mean an idiot. He meant like someone who just soaks up absolutely everything in his environment and makes it his own, almost more than anyone else, probably. So his knowledge was unbelievably deep for someone who died.
Yeah, sure. Considering the time also, I mean. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So that was fascinating to me when Steve replied. So you can, you know, I can just say anything to him and he's off. Like, yeah. And we did like an hour and a half Zoom thing. This is another subject. But anyway, he was going to be artist in residence on Zoom over the last 2 or 3 years. Anyway, at Trinity Laban, where I teach, anyway, it didn't work out. But even then, he sent me all of the Dean Benedetti recordings, which I'd never had. You got those?
No.
Wow, I can send you those.
Oh, please, yeah, would love to.
Because I wanted to buy them. I wanted to try and get them, but it's all out of print.
Yeah, sure.
The box set's gone, and so it's so giving, you know, to send me that. So nice. So I've got a lot of respect for Steve.
Oh man, me too. I remember when I started. Also, I bought the, you know, Dave Holland, obviously, like with Kenny. I love that band, and then I checked like Steve's band, you know, with the polyrhythms and what's happening. I made lead sheets, and I found them the other day. It's probably all wrong, but
Oh, you transcribed them? Yeah.
well, I tried. I didn't know what was happening, and would be. I was just like, that's 7, that's 11, that's like 77. The whole, structure. What then? And like trying to analyze. But yeah, it's an amazing player. Yeah, amazing player.
Which I've only done a tiny little bit of that. Which recordings did you do?
Like that rhythm people and drop kick, that early stuff, like early 90s, when I kind of dug into that, and when it was still easy, kind of what he did.
Yeah. I like the one that's in the easiest one for me was that one live in the studio. What's it called?
Oh yeah.
What's it called, that one?
I know what you mean. Yeah. That's a killing one.
Yeah, it's just after those, I think. The Tower of Mad Fat.
Mad Fat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that one.
That's a good record. Yeah.
Wow, Steve, I went to see him recently. He played in London a few months ago, actually.
Yeah, they toured Europe.
Did you see him?
No, I couldn't. Not close enough. I watched a little bit on the stream, like Porgy and Bess in Vienna.
Okay.
They have a stream, so I watched that a little bit. So, but he sounds, it's just like, okay, you're there, doing your own thing for the last 40 years, or
right. He's pretty consistent, isn't he?
Yeah, like incredible, and the band always, the young cats, and all of them then 5 years later become these incredible leaders and writers, everything, and it's important guy, I think. It's really important.
Very important guy. Yeah, he's with his own path, and and he did talk about it in the email. He's played with some of those guys for that so many years, a really long time. I don't know, it's at least 20 years, isn't it? With Jonathan Finlayson.
Sean Rickman also, the drummer.
And then
Anthony Kidd, and
who's from London.
Oh yeah, exactly.
He's a London guy. I don't know him actually, but he left just a bit. I didn't know that scene very. He had a band called Quite Sane, and he left, and he's really based in America now. And he's got a teaching thing, and I loved it.
Yeah,
I don't love everything they do, but it's basically it's great.
Yeah, it's like one concept of music, like to check out. I think also.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
quite cool. Yeah, but sorry, you were talking about bands.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Who should I go to now? Jeff Williams.
Jeff Williams. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about
Jeff. Have I finished with Banff? Probably finished with Banff. Yeah, very special place. I think it changed after that pretty much because it became 2 weeks, I think. But this was like a month. Oh my God, it's a month in the Rocky Mountains. Like, wow.
That's funny. Your generation, like everyone I talked to, like especially people like from 85 to 94, they say Banff for everyone was, especially Europeans and Americans, like was a life-changing experience. Like everyone's just like, man, that's where I made the musical connections, and interesting.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it's true. I'm trying to think what musical. So Ethan, and did nothing done with Tony Malaby, but they were both. I have to say, both those guys. Tony felt like he got. I think he was pissed off with Steve actually at the time. Of course, and just retreated. Something about it he didn't like at the time. That's my memory. And with Steve Coleman. Who else was there? Tony was. There's something about it I wanted to say. Ethan, Tony Wilson, I did some things with. I've forgotten. There was something else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, Duncan Hopkins. Maybe you don't know him.
No.
Duncan Hopkins is a great bass player. He's actually born in Birmingham, but he's pretty much Canadian. He moved very young. He was there. He's younger than me. A bit young, a few years younger, maybe. Yeah, he must have been very young at that time, I think. And somehow something happened. We kept in touch, or he contacted me. And then we started playing together in England and in Canada. And we hooked up with this drummer called Anthony McKelly, who's a Canadian drummer, and Nicky Isles, the English piano player, who I did a duo album. Half of it is free and half of it's tunes years ago. And somehow, I don't know what. I remember. Anthony McKelly, the drummer, was playing a gig. That's right. I decked for Peter King, the saxophone player, who couldn't do this gig somewhere in England, not a festival. And I ended up doing it with this pickup Canadian rhythm section. which was him. And then we got on very well. And I said, do you know Duncan Hopkins, the guy I'd met at Banff? He said, oh, yeah, we don't play together much. I said, I'm just thinking of starting something. I don't know, feels like I should start something with Nicky. And for some reason then, I don't know, things happen like that, don't
Yeah, sure.
Just get a feeling. And Duncan and I were really the motivators. Duncan got some gigs in Canada and we did something for the Canadian broadcast, CBC, I think. It was very nice. And some gigs there. And then I got some gigs in England and we did it. It was really good fun as a band. We did 2 albums, which you might know about, Secret and what's the other one called? Bloor Street, which is a street in
Okay, to check it out. Don't know these things.
2 quartet albums by that line. And that actually, in a way, it was a more cooperative compositionally, because it wasn't just my tunes. Some of mine, some of Nicky's a great composer.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Some of mine, some of Nicky's, and some of Duncan's. Anthony didn't write anything. And we did those 2 bands. But it's just one of those things, if it's not me doing it, it's not going to happen. You know, it's just.
I know, man.
You have I mean, I'm so impressed. I look at your discography, all your different projects, and you're doing interviews. I mean, funny enough, I do interviews as well, but I don't do them on Zoom at the moment. I'm going to start doing that. I've got like 30 interviews.
Really?
But I had a cutoff. First of all, I was only going to do British musicians because no one knows about them. And I started about 12 years ago, and I had the thing, they've gotten to be older than me, at least 10 years older than me. Yeah, that was it. And I started doing that, and they're just audio. But now with this technology, I might as well do what you do. You just
you talked with Kenny also, right? I saw Wheeler.
Yeah, so there's 5 of them are written up on my website.
Yeah, I saw that.
Kenny, yeah, right towards the end of his life. That was a funny one. I don't know whether you read it, but it's great. And most of these people, 90% of them had really good memories. Oh, Kenny, yeah. So,
did you ever play with Kenny, by the way?
Unfortunately not. He was at Banff, and that's the only time where we did his big band music at Banff. Sorry. So you know, and that was a time of small and large ensembles.
Oh, man.
It's a bit of a classic, isn't it?
One of the best records, ever.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And so no, I never played with him apart from that experience then. But right towards the end of his life, I think it was going to happen because, if Ray Worley can't do it in the big band, can he? And his son was kind of organising it. Mark Wheeler, his son, took care of his sort of things towards the end, and Kelly was very nice actually, because I said I want to do this interview, and so he started checking out my music before the interview as well. And I'd done that duo album with Colin Oxley at the time, I think, and he commented on it, talked about it.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
It's really nice. And I did the interview, and Doreen was there, which is his wife, and the first woman he met when he came to England, I think. It's such an incredible story, I don't know whether you've read all that stuff, but
I browsed through it, yeah.
It's such a wow. I mean, I know we're all one-offs, aren't we? But him, and they joke about, like Stan Saltzman or someone. Maybe he told me this, or John Parricelli or something. They're rehearsing around Kenny's house, and they're having a break, and can we have a cup of tea, Ken? And Ken goes to the kitchen, and they haven't heard from him for ages. You might have heard this story. Are you all right, Ken? He said, yeah, I can't find the tea, and so basically he couldn't do anything apart from music. Actually, I've always said to people, and Nick Smart, who you might know, do you know Nick?
No.
Okay, he's a trumpet player, and he's a Kenny Wheeler serious fan, and he took care of Kenny a lot towards the end. In fact, he always managed him with Mark Wheeler, the 2 of them towards the end of Kenny's life. And Nick he's just done a biography of Kenny.
Really?
So,
oh man, okay.
It's finished.
Oh,
and
super.
I don't know when it's going to be published, but he's been doing it for years. I mean, really. So it should be in depth. Okay. And I talked about psychologically, because I'm always interested in the psychology of people and why people are like they are, and he touches on that in the book. He said, I said, because look, no one would know Kenny Wheeler if it wasn't for Doreen. because she took care of absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So he could just practice and play music.
Focus on the music, yeah.
All day long. And that generation, there's a few others in that generation where that situation, domestic situation, was like that. You know, some people I didn't interview, unfortunately. Don Weller, you might not know, a really amazing tenor player.
No.
You probably wouldn't know him. No, really incredible. Hardly any recordings. He played with Gil Evans when Gil Evans was in London.
Really? Wow.
And he's on the film called Absolute Beginners. They're the most famous
Oh, yeah,
things.
okay.
He's with Stan Tracy. You probably know Stan.
Stan.
Tracy.
Yeah, I know Stan.
Maybe Stan a lot. Oh. Anyway, that's an example of someone else. And Bobby Wellings, you might have heard of. Yeah, and I know that generation, as far as I know, it was that's the kind of thing that the wives, certainly in Stan's case, Stan Tracy's case, she gave up a big job at Decca Records.
Oh, wow.
To managing or support.
Yeah.
So there is this thing. There was that thing. It's not right or wrong. What I'm saying is just that was a generational thing.
Interesting.
And those people, particularly with Kenny. Well, there's Doreen's thing. Why we that support. But then there was a thing happened with him, with a guy called Nick Purnell, who you probably also won't know. But Nick Smart is the expert on this. He really is the expert on Kenny. He's gone into his whole thing. He's interviewed everyone, you know, even Manfred Eicher eventually did an interview, you know, with him about Kenny, you know, and all these players. And he used a bit of my interview, I think he said. But two significant things seem to be about him. And this is just how it is in life. You know, there's loads of amazing musicians. I know Kenny's really got his own thing, you know, like Jazz Vaughan Williams or whatever it is, you know. So it's just fantastic. It's so romantic, so beautiful melodies and that. Like classical music, isn't it? It's like incredible thing. Doreen, massively supportive. Sounds like the first woman he met when he came to England, and they get married really quickly, you know. She's an East London person. They lived in Leytonstone their whole life, you know. That's where I went and did the interview at his place. And then there's other guy, which I don't know so much about. I do know who he is, but Nick Purnell was sort of also really like Kenny. He's a musician up north of England, trombone player, I think. And he was running a lot of things, one thing called the Creative Jazz Orchestra, where Braxton, Tim Byrne came over.
Really?
He got some funding, and Nicky Isles was involved in it. And Mike Walker, you probably know. You know Mike, the guitar player.
Mike
Walker,
oh shit, man.
Yeah,
Mike,
right.
Yeah.
So you know him. So I think they were, because Nicky and him, they all grew up together. So that was the North of England thing, Creative Jazz Orchestra. And Nick Purnell, I think, ran it. And he was good at getting funding. So he got funding for Braxton and Tim Byrne to come over, and they did all this music together. Why am I saying that? Right. And Nick Purnell was really into Kenny, and he had his own album label called Outram. So if you investigated British jazz, you might have some of those. There's a Kenny Wheeler album on that label. Don't know what that's called. It's like a nonette, maybe 10 piece. Anyway, is the record label? You're right. I think the record label's called Room, like after the Mingus.
Oh, okay. I'll write it down and check. Actually,
trying to remember what the album's called. Might be challenging to find that one. But so Nick really liked Kenny. I'm talking about this secondhand. This is as far as I know. And so he started representing Kenny, and then he had the idea. Abercrombie, John Taylor, Dave Holland, Peter Erskine, and that's why Kenny got gigs in Europe.
Oh, wow, interesting.
That's like a super group, right?
Oh, man.
And and it's a great band, but it's like the thing with, as far as I know, I think that I was told that the album WW Kenny Wheeler was supposed to be Stan Saltzman on saxophone. But
I talked to Stan about that. Yeah.
So Stan told you, right? So that's true, right? And Manfred wouldn't have it. I think Mike Brecker should do this. Yep. I don't know whether that's a business thing or a musical. Probably a business thing, isn't it? And I understand. I've got a lot of respect for Manfred. Of course, what he's done is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's changed the music. It's incredible. But there are those things, aren't there?
Oh man, there's always a but. Yeah, I talked to many musicians about who refused to do certain things, because he just would say no, or I don't want that, or I toured now with Bob Moses. You know Bob, right? the drummer?
I don't know him, but I know who he is. Yeah.
And he told me some really interesting stories from the 70s regarding ECM. I was like, really, man? About the peculiarity of Manfred, who I respect, immensely. ECM is, for me, one of the most important labels, of course.
Ever. Yeah, I mean...
But interesting to see this business aspect that you mentioned. So.
Yeah, I think it's... Even Bobo said that to me more recently, Bobo Stenson, in the last few years. He said, I think maybe he's got to think more business-wise. It was business to a certain extent, but in the 70s, it was different, wasn't it? Definitely. The world, like everything, as soon as we wake up, everything we look at is corporate. It's like all these decisions going on. It's destroying. It's a big subject, I could go into, obviously, but it's destroying humanity. This approach to life, and we've got. My belief is we're going to get through to an amazing time eventually. I hope I'm alive when it happens. so that's going to affect even ECM. They held out with Spotify, didn't they, for a long time?
Yeah.
And then they eventually did it, which was a shame. Would have been great to hold out. And I presume, and that's always an issue for me. The Spotify, I don't know what to do.
I know what you mean.
There was something else there I wanted to say. With the ECM thing, my experience of that was
sorry, since we're at ECM, how did that Change of Heart album actually happen? Because what was the connection that you got that album and especially that band? Paul Motian, man, what was that like? I want to ask you about that.
Paul's beautiful. And then there's this little bit of him that's he's gone all dark. He goes all dark. But I mean, Paul, Charlie, Keith. That's my vibe. That's Ornette. That's the vibe for me. A lot of in jazz. I mean, I love Charlie Parker as well. But I can't play like that. But I can get closer to the Keith and all that.
For me, Ornette is like the player. I mean, that's why I started playing jazz. Actually, like me.
Ornette.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. The first album I had was Ornette live at the Golden Circle.
Oh, yeah. I got the complete Atlantic recordings. I transcribed all the half of the solos. Really, I was obsessed with that. Really.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to play together.
It would be nice.
How that came about? Around after Banff, 91. Yeah, that's interesting. I did it around that time. So that changed me, Banff. I've got to tell people if I want to play with them, I've got to tell them. So I'd made my first album in our time, but it hadn't been released. I think I had it on a cassette. And I got Paul Motian's. I love Paul's music, and I loved all those albums that were coming out at that time, which were the standard ones on Broadway.
Yeah, with Bill and
and 1, 2, and 1 or 2 or 3. Maybe they'd all come out around that time. 87, I think, it started coming out. And I'd heard his music and Keith Jarrett's music and Bill Evans, also his thing with Bill Evans. And like a lot of us, it resonates. There's something about it that resonates with a lot of people. Not everyone, but something about it. And I got his number off John Cumming, who worked for Sirius Productions, which is the company that has a stranglehold on the London Jazz Festival. Okay. That's a whole other.
Oh yeah.
You know about them? There's another political story.
I mean, I know about the festivals. It's impossible to get gigs on festivals. It's
possible for British musicians to get gigs.
Yeah.
Well, certain British musicians. I'd love to have a conversation about all this. But that's going to take
with a bottle of wine once life. That's
right. We can talk about music at the moment. So I got the number, got the address, Central Park West. He lived, Paul, and got it from John Cumming, because John Cumming sort of represented in Europe quite a bit, and the Liberation Music Orchestra at that time, Charlie's thing.
Yeah.
And Paul, he loved all that. And I wrote to Paul and said, look, I'm a saxophone player in England. I love your music. This is some of my music. If I get some gigs, would you be interested in doing it? Got his phone number. No answer machine in those days. So I rang a few times. Eventually he was in. 2 or 3. I left it 2 or 3 weeks. Oh, hi Martin. Yeah. I got your letter, got your tape. Yeah, the music sounds good. Yeah. My fee's $2,000 for a week. Bye. It's like he was like really few words, few words. So it's like $2,000 in 1991, 92, around that time. I thought, I don't know, is that a lot? Or I can't work. And people, that's actually maybe not that much, So I wrote to loads of venues, and I had the idea with John Parricelli, Mick Hutton. They were the people I was playing with at the time.
Yeah.
Steve Argüelles, and so Steve was not going to do it. Steve loved Paul at that time. Steve Argüelles loved Paul Motian at that time, and I didn't get any responses. No one was interested.
Really?
And then quite a while later, a festival, which one was it, in Ireland? What's the northern Belfast festival? Rang me back and said, "Yeah, we're really interested in that project. We'll give you 2 nights, and with this fee, which was quite a good fee, and maybe they pay the air, and that's all I needed, to get some other gigs."
Yeah.
So I got a week of gigs. I got
Really?
a week in England, 2 at that festival. I can't remember where I played in England. 4 or 5 gigs in England, and even got him to come into the Royal Academy of Music where I was teaching. He was not interested in teaching at all. I think we just played and something, And so that was my experience with Paul. We played the Jazz Cafe in London. I remember that. Brentwood. Can't remember where else we played, actually. That's interesting. I've forgotten that. Those 2 nights. And he was great. And he was into rehearsing at that time,
Oh, really? Wow.
Just rehearsed before the gig. He was really nice to hang out with, I can remember, I wrote a little bit about him on my website. I don't know whether you read that as well, but there's
not yet.
I memories of Paul, and there was one very funny memory. There was lots, and we were walking around in Ireland, and he went into this bookshop, and the book was, this is one of the best jazz books. I've got to remember the name now. What's it called? I'm going to remember it in a minute. Anyway, so there was that, but that wasn't the story. And then we came out of the bookshop. We're walking down the road, and a cab pulls up, and Honor Blackman walks out. I don't know whether you know who she is. She's a famous actress who was in James Bond films.
Okay.
And the character was called Pussy Galore in the James Bond film. She gets out of the cab, and Paul sees her and goes, "Pussy Galore!" He's like, immediately, without a moment, he's like, immediately, that's the most bizarre thing. And she's freaking out, like she's got minders and that. It was just an incredible moment that he just clicked immediately. He's a funny guy.
Oh,
yeah, and I knew what it was going to sound like when I played with him. It was just louder. I knew exactly what it was going to sound like. I listened to all the recordings.
Yeah.
And the beat is, that's that generation of the big beat. The beat, impossible to describe, right? The beat between one and the next beat is big.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And because we played some kind of swing thing. I played some blues for mine. We played, not on the album, obviously Manfred wouldn't like blues on the album, but it's, and you just, wow, I've got this. This is absolutely.
Did you record something of that, like the live gigs, or?
That's interesting, because I don't think I did.
Shit. Okay.
I had no idea about all that. Then it's just crazy because I even said to someone, on YouTube, there's somebody who puts up a lot of Paul Motian, the world of Paul Motian or something. On
okay. Oh, really? I have to find it.
Yeah, there's loads of bootleg gigs. Incredible.
Wow. Okay.
Loads, like a whole week of the trio at the Vanguard.
Really? Okay. Wow.
One with Malaby and Mark Turner. There's one, there's like all sorts of lineups. There's a duo with Konitz and Motian.
Ooh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I emailed this guy and I said, have you come across any tapes of me on tour with Paul? He said, no. He knew about it though. Somehow he knew about it. Yeah, I wonder. I totally wonder. That's such a good question because I would love to hear something like that.
Because that was the band with John Parricelli, not with Bobo yet.
The first time, that's a good point. Yeah, the first one was with John Parricelli. What did we play? Did we play my tunes?
Okay.
I think we played a couple of his. He did bring some over.
Really? Oh, nice, beautiful.
He said the thing to me that he bought a tune of his called 1 in 3, which is, and he said, Chris Potter thinks I'm mad with this tune. It's like, it's very funny. See, what are you doing when this tune's like? It's very funny. So yeah, good point. That was with John. Yeah, and then after that, that was 92, wow, 93 okay. Maybe, no, I can't remember, 92, 93. I didn't get any funding for that tour. I just had the gig money, I think, from what I remember. And so that worked out. Somehow it worked out, yeah. And I wasn't broke. And then for years, I was thinking, how am I going to do this again? And I went to see Bobo Stenson play at the Pizza Express with Anders Jormin and Jon Christensen.
Yeah.
Before Jon stopped, you know, and where the alcohol just got too much, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Bobo couldn't play with him either in the end, you know. And that's incredible, right? You know, that trio, that's some of the best rubato playing in the world. You know, that War Orphans, particularly War Orphans, and Reflections is one of my Desert Island discs. Reflections in D, that tune on that, the Ellington thing. I mean, it was
masterful. Yeah.
Beautiful, and the sound was great on that album. And Bobo said, actually, Manfred didn't like that album at first, and it took quite a while to come out. He wasn't happy about, and then it comes out and wins loads of awards. It's interesting. So I heard this band, and I went up to Bobo and said, look, you don't know, I'm Martin Speake on the saxophone. I just love your thing, and I've got this idea. Oh yeah, first of all, I had this idea. Oh, I think I want to play with Brad Mehldau. Because he was around at the time, you know. Brad Mehldau, yeah, I heard this album. Wow, maybe Brad Mehldau and Paul Motian and Mick, Hutton, great bass player. Yeah. And so I rang up Paul and I said, this is before Bobo. I said, Paul, have you got Brad Meldau's number? He said, no, I haven't. I've got no idea how to get it either. Bye. It was just hilarious. What, you're a New York musician and you don't know how to, you could just ring somebody else and get the. But that was meant to be, you know, it was meant to be. I was not meant to play with him. So, and I'd seen Brad play in London with UK musicians, actually, with Stephen Keogh, great drummer, lives in Spain most of the time, I think, and Jeremy Brown, a bass player, British bass player. I saw him at the Pizza Express, and Brad was playing with not his own trio at the time, so it was relatively early on, quite early on. And of course, stunning musician.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
But it's interesting, he probably wasn't right for me, and that's why that happened. So I went to see Bobo. I ignored it, so Paul was not going to get Brad's number for me. There must be a reason, right? Okay, I'm going to see Bobo now. This is amazing. This is probably more like it, right? So, and I said, Bobo, I've got this idea, right? And so he didn't know me, so he's intrigued with playing with Paul. He loved Paul, right? And I think they'd met once when Keith did that Scandinavian thing in the late 60s, which he might have. And he said, yeah, Keith Jarrett stayed on my floor. So he said. He also said, that motherfucker stole my band. Don't edit. You're not going to edit all this, right? You don't need to edit any of this.
No.
Don't do any editing. This is the truth. This is life. Right? But you know, and you know what he means by that. He had that band with Jan and Pally and Jon and Keith. Keith's got my band now, you know. But interestingly, you know, that's Bobo didn't write many tunes, really. Compositionally, the Keith thing is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
really the whole band's amazing.
Yeah, but the tunes are like
it really makes it, doesn't it? It really had something new there, unique. So I remember Bobo saying that was funny. He told me that years later, you know. And so Bobo was intrigued by me with getting Paul. Yeah, I like to play with Paul. So I told Paul, and I don't know whether Paul knew Bobo, but maybe they'd met once or something. And so I got that. And then at that time, which is, what year is this? 2000, there's quite a few years after, Jim Smith ran the Cheltenham Jazz Festival, which still goes on. Another place I can't get a gig now, by the way. So it's funny. And he was really supportive. And I knew he commissioned people every year. And I said, would you be interested in commissioning me to write some music for an international band? And I think I said Brad first, and then they did the Bobo thing. And I've got this idea of Bobo Stenson, Paul Motian, and Mick Hutton. I said, yeah, great, I'll do that. And he gave me a bit of money to write some tunes. And so he booked them. So the fee was reasonable there, I think, for the festival. And so I then booked 10 gigs, consecutive gigs, like nearly a 2-week tour.
Wow. And
I got funding. That's probably one of the best tours I've done in terms of
financial, yeah.
Financial, we all got paid the same, which is amazing.
Wow, that's, yeah, you as a band leader, man. That's...
Yeah, normally you're just impoverished, right? So, and we were in the same van. We drove together. I drove Mick.
Oh, wow.
Did most of the driving. We had a great time for probably not all of it. So I don't know whether we fell out, any of us, on that tour. And I just had a really nice time hanging out together. And we had the Good Pub Guide. I don't drink. I'm not interested in alcohol. But we had the Good Pub Guide. It's a little book driving around England where it gives all the recommendations for pubs and food, you know. And so we wake up in the morning, we'd all check this out. Where are we going to go before? It's more important than the gig.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so
always,
important.
Man. Like...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where are we going to eat before for lunch before the gig? So we did that. It was really nice bonding thing. And they, you know, when, you know, Paul talked about that when he was alive, and Bobo talks about that even now. He said it's one of the best tours. Paul says, I've got a whole chapter on that tour in my autobiography. I don't know how that is, but you know, Cindy McGill, his niece, does the podcast. You know about that?
No, I have to check it out.
It's called Uncle Paul's Jazz Closet.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it, but I haven't checked it out yet. Okay.
Very nice. So she every now and again does a radio podcast, because she's got everything of his. She's got all his, because he wrote a lot. He wrote a lot of diaries. I said to him, he said, I always kept a diary. I said, okay, then, Paul, what did you get paid for when you played with Bill Evans in the Village Vanguard in 1960? And he could remember and told me.
Wow, that's amazing, man.
And he wrote about the music as well and the players. And
wow.
It sucks tonight, you know, or whatever. You know, like,
I can see that actually.
Yeah, he's hilarious. You know, like, yeah, great. Wow. I'm thinking about him now. How beautiful it was for me to play with him.
Oh man, sure. It's
and so Jim Smith, Cheltenham Jazz Festival. Yeah, great idea. Paid me for that, and I got the gigs together, and it all worked out. Some things work out. You know, synchronicity. Paul was up for doing it, and Bobo, and then we did these gigs and really got on. It was nice. So I'm going to do it again in the year after. We all got paid the same money that, and then the year after it was 3 weeks, but days off. It was much harder. I didn't get any funding, which meant I had to pay hotels.
Yeah.
Days off. You've done all this stuff, right? And you can feel it. I can see you feeling the stress. But we did some things, you know, and it was good that I did it, because then Manfred. That was UK, by the way. It was only UK. Manfred they were probably recording for him anyway, and he was always asking them what they're doing, you know. And so, we're playing with Martin Speake, alto player, and I'd probably been writing to ECM for years. Oh, please give me a recording.
Sure.
Of course, you know, everyone does it. But so, and they said, oh, he's interested in this project. He was sort of probably interested in Bobo and Paul playing together.
Yeah, sure.
They hadn't played together, but both on the label. And then Mick, he knew, because Mick was in First House.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure.
With Django.
Django Bates, yeah.
Ken Stubbs was an alto player.
Yeah.
With Martin France, an incredible.
I love Martin, man.
Yeah, me too. I mean, so Martin, Django, and Mick did 2 albums on ECM.
Yeah,
that happened because in those days, that Evan Parker recommended the band. You know, so Manfred took that advice. all those connections are so important. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's someone saying this is good, you know. So where am I at now? We did that other two, yeah, and that's when it happened. Maybe Manfred called me as, I'm interested in this band. Can we record in Oslo, Rainbow?
Oh, nice.
2002, and wow, I've got to listen to all these records that are recorded there and love all this music, and it happened, you know. And we went there, and Manfred said the first day, and Mick, by the way, Mick didn't really want to, I don't even think he wanted to do it, because he knew Manfred's experience. And Mick is a really incredible bass player. I mean,
yeah,
incredible, plays the instrument so well. But he was a little bit freaked out by Manfred, the experience with Manfred. And also, I think he hated flying. And he said, look, I'm going to drive all the way. I said, Mick, that's just crazy. You're going to be knackered by the time you get there. Please don't. And I was, not that I could persuade him to do anything, but anyway, he did fly. And we did it. And then he was resentful about it after. That's a whole other story. But so we were there. And the first day I met Manfred in the hotel, and we go in the studio, Rainbow, and there's Jan Erik. Doesn't say a word the whole time. Nothing.
Oh wow, good man.
Very nice, but just doing all the stuff, getting a good sound. Although, you know, we had had these individual monitor type things, you know, in studios. You know. I just thought another incredible story about that recording, and it all sounded a bit like Jan Garbarek through my speaker.
Sure.
It's too bright and I love Jan, but I can, you know, it's not me. It's a bit, anyway, but great sound and everything, you know, and some very funny things there. Psychologically, I'm talking about, like, very funny. So Paul, before the thing, I said, Paul, can you bring some mallets? Because, you know, this tune of mine feels like it should have mallets. He said, yeah. And so he's in the studio and I bought some new mallets. He just bought some, he said. You know. Never played them the whole time in the studio. Didn't do that. He didn't bother, right? This is hilarious. And then Manfred never gave any directions to Bobo or Paul at all. It was all directed at me, a little bit to Mick, but all at me. The newcomer, you know.
Sure.
I learned a lot from this experience. And he said, I remember he saying to Paul, I think this tune would sound good on brushes. Paul just played it on sticks. It was just, and no one said anything. It didn't make any difference. It was just hilarious. So I was a bit petrified by this situation. What the hell's going on here? And I'm playing away and just tuning mine, and Manfred comes and said, and he's gesticulating and kind of singing my tune. I don't like it in that octave. Can you play it in the lower octave? There's that much control. Can you play the tune in the lower? Okay. He's a producer, you know. It's like I wasn't used to it. I used to making all my own albums.
Sure.
Never have a producer. It's like it's like being in a pop situation where the producer is really controlling the situation. And I understand it now. At the time, I was really resentful. Fuck this, you know. I think on the first day this was going on, and he also said, I'm not going to record anything the first day because you haven't played together for a few months. Just treat it as a rehearsal. Oh God!
Oh, that's a shame. Well,
so, and I don't know whether he did or not. That's the thing. Probably did. Probably did. Probably said to Jan just to keep it rolling, because I don't know when the tunes, which day they were recording on that he released. I don't know. Don't know anything about it. That is the experience. And by the way, I'm really grateful for the experience. Of course.
Sure, man. It's like
just relaying what happened and how I.
Yeah. Sure.
And. We're playing away, and oh no, I've got to say this at the beginning though. So I had this, and I still don't know the truth of this. I had this reed on saxophone in it, and it was old, it was a bit rough. I actually need a new reed. It's just a clapped out reed. I'm going to put a new reed on. I'm playing away with the reed. It's a bit hard, but anyway, we start recording, and he stopped. He said, I think you need to put the old reed on. Can you change your reed? Right. And so to this day, I don't know whether he had really amazing ears or he saw me going through that situation and changing the reed thing. It was, and psychologically, it's like
interesting. Yeah.
So they wanted me to put this clapped out reed on. That's what the album's recorded on.
Wow. Okay.
So I thought an over soft reed, or I don't know what I thought. I thought it was a bit clapped out, and so he wanted that. I don't know, but also it's a sort of a control thing, like that.
Yeah, sure.
Or a direction thing. He's the producer. It's a direction. But he might have been right as well. That's the other thing.
That's Leland Sklar, the bass player.
Who?
Leland Sklar.
Oh yeah,
he plays with with the long beard with Phil Collins.
Yeah.
So speaking of psychology and recording and producers, you have to check this out. He has on his bass like a switch, right?
Right.
It's a dead switch. It doesn't do anything, but it's like to change between the pickups on a bass guitar. Like okay, but he put like a empty one, not connected, and and then he said in one interview he has this, he calls it the producer's switch. So he does one take, like I don't know, for Peter Gabriel, whatever, like do boob do or all fantastic, right? And then the producer says like yeah Leland, it's good, but can you do another one and change the sound, please? It's too, I don't know, whatever. And then he says, so it's quite cool. He says like, okay, and then you really have to change that producer's switch so that the producer sees it, that you actually do it. So it's like you're looking up looks. Of course,
it doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything, but the producer says, okay, he changed, and he plays the same shit basically. And then the producer is like, yeah, it's fantastic.
That's a great story. That's an incredible.
I love that. I laughed so much when I saw that because I've done
it
with people. Yeah, I've done it with people, like with singers. Like can you make this, I don't know, brighter? And I know it would be a worse change, right? And I do it kind of like so that they see it, but I keep my setting. Yeah, it's way better now. But you don't change anything, for instance. But
that's a beautiful story. That's so good. The fact that he's actually done it on his
that you have to see it. That the guy. I love it. I love that. But I don't know with Manfred. I mean, Manfred obviously he must have a good ear. I mean,
yeah, it's another level. I mean, then the thing about him is, I want to reiterate, it was amazing, really. With hindsight, at the time after the first day, with these things going on, I was thinking, "Fuck this! I'm going to go home." It's like this is one of the things I really wanted to do, but I feel like that. But then we did the second day, and then Mick's feeling like that as well. Bobo and Paul were totally used to it, and it's a different relationship. They're there from the beginning with Manfred, much closer, and Manfred gave Paul the opportunity to compose and do those early albums. You know what I'm talking about, your Conception Vessel and Tribute, and Bobo's there almost from the beginning. It's a totally different thing. So anyway, I didn't go home. We did it, and the second day, the end of the second day, we were supposed to mix on the third day. That's what it was: 2 days recording, 1 day mixing. ECM of those days, I don't know what it is now.
Yeah.
And Manfred said, "I'm not going to mix it tomorrow because I'm finishing off an album." This is interesting. An album. I think it's the album Roslyn, John Taylor, Mark Johnson, and Joey Barron. Because someone told me John had walked out the studio halfway through the recording because of Manfred.
Wow, shit.
I don't know whether that's true. I think it probably is, that he got fed up with it or something, So because that's unusual for him to do 1 day recording. That's unusual. So I think they're finishing off that album, as far as I remember. So, and of course, Paul and Mark were very close. Paul Motian and Mark Johnson. And Mark comes and we go out for a meal. All of us go out for a meal.
Oh, wow.
Joey's not there. I don't know Joey, and I met Mark, and it was really nice. And we all went for a walk in the park with Paul, him, and Manfred wasn't there then, I don't think. But Manfred said, "I'm going to fly you back in some other time to mix it." Oh, great, okay. That never happened. That he just did it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, when is this album going to come out? I was like, 4 years later, it came out. He sent me an email. Sent me an email. That's probably one of the longest ones. There have been some others, I think, that have come out later, but it came out in 2006. It was recorded in 2002, and it's probably one of the last things Paul did out of America. You know, because he had that bypass.
Then he didn't fly anymore. Yeah.
And I mean, what a great way to end your life. Thinking, fuck this, I'm not going anywhere again. You just come to me.
Yeah.
$1,000 a gig, no rehearsal. $5,000 a recording.
Yeah.
No rehearsal.
Yeah. I talked to
like
so many guys about like Samuel Blaser, you know, the trombone player from Switzerland.
I know of him.
He told me that, like, you know, he really wanted to play with Paul, right? And Paul was like, exactly, 5,000 for the recording. Like,
so I got him right. I got him just before that. Stuff, you know.
Yeah. Thanks. You know.
Yeah, so that's the where should we go with that ECM thing?
I wanted to ask you about that. You know, I mean, obviously, it's an important step in every musician's life, because I mean, that's how I got to know you, to be honest, through that record. Because then I loved the record. I was, oh shit, he sounds amazing, you know. And I checked other stuff, and then you know, you follow the artist more or less if you like him afterward. But after that record, change of heart, like nothing happened anymore with ECM. Like there was no more interest, right? That's usually the story. Yeah, that's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because it got really good reviews. All over the world, you know. And and actually, I think it's Bobo's best playing on one of those tracks. Never heard anything like it on Change of Heart. I think where he just plays it don't play the melody at the beginning. He comes in improvising. I mean, he's a great improviser.
I love Bobo. I mean, those guys, you know, had some of the best on every instrument, Paul and Bobo. And so also the most unique, you know. You hear Paul playing a ballad, of course, no brushes, like with that stick coming every 6 seconds, and it's like, but it works, you know. That's the funny thing, actually.
Well, that's what, interestingly, I've been hearing some students play recently, and they all play too quietly on ballads, and when they're playing with singers, they're a bit too frightened and they're trying to be sensitive. So the singer needs some support here. Come on. You know,
like every time now, a student hears like a ballad, not student music, a drummer, mostly 90% ballad, they take the brushes. Come on, don't. Why? Let's first listen to the melody. What's happening? You know, I don't know, play a drum solo over it. I don't know, whatever. Like,
exactly. I am actually I mean, I've played, excuse me, I've played with Bobo a few times since then.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
With Jeff Williams, who I haven't talked about yet. I didn't get to Jeff. We've forgotten about Jeff and how that happened. But and also, who have I done it with? Steve Watts early on, and then this great bass player Connor Chaplin and James Madron. There's a video.
Yeah, I love James. Yeah.
There's a video on YouTube of us playing at the Guildhall School of Music. Very nicely recorded.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Video. So, and I'm going to do a duo tour with Bobo.
Really?
In the UK in April. Yeah.
Oh wow. Fantastic.
I said, I need to play together again. He says, yeah. I said, what do you want? Duo, quartet? He said, do anything. Duo, quartet, orchestra. So I thought duo would be the easiest because I haven't gone for any funding. I mean, you know, I dread the idea of, because I had an amazing woman who helps a lot of people out with funding. She knows the bullshit stuff you have to write. Diversity, all nonsense, particularly in Britain. It's very
it's everywhere the same. It's
the nonsense, right? It's just nonsense. And she's not well, I think. So she said, I can't do that application. So I can't face it myself. So I booked the dates. And Bobo doesn't really want to talk about money anyway. He doesn't like talking. He doesn't want to take any more money than Mick. Also all this stuff. But, you know, and then his wife sort of manages him now, Ingrid. And I know them quite well, you know. So anyway, I think it's good. I think I booked about 10 dates. So
fantastic, man. Beautiful.
I'm hoping it's going to happen.
Don't forget to record, right?
Yeah, these days I'm going to get. I mean, I did. You know, I've got it a bit sussed a bit more now. But I did. Have you seen that video of me on tour with Ethan and Jorge Rossi?
Yeah. I love that, man. I love that. This is
well made.
I would love to watch. If there was like from every tour jazz musicians did, I would watch these forever. It's just like really,
yeah,
you know, the vibes.
Seriously, Yeah, but the way he's a young guy, Emile Burgoyne, who's a filmmaker. He's only early 20s. And I know him because of his brother, Phelan, plays drums, and I made 2 trio albums with Phelan and Rob Luff, his guitar player. Phelan's music, which is really influenced by Paul. And I met Phelan when he was 14. Do you know of him?
No.
Okay,
check out.
He's living in Italy there now, and he loves ECM. He's always trying to get these little things together with people who are on ECM, hoping he's going to get maybe he will one day. Yeah, you know, he knows people do that, don't they? So I'm close to him, and so his brother makes films. They're very creative young people, yeah. And so Emile, I said, just do what you want, follow us, and he follows us around on tour for most of the tour, and made, you know, he's got hours and hours of stuff, and made that film. I just think he did it really well, and I sent it to somebody else who's like a great drummer called Spike Wells, who's a real film buff in Britain, who's played Bobby Wellens a lot, and he's quite harsh, and you know, he's very aware of films, and he was really impressed. You know, he was doing this little thing online about what's the best jazz film, and we both agreed Sven Klang's Quintet. Do you know that film?
No.
Incredible, Swedish, I think, black and white film. It's a fictitious thing, but of a jazz. It's about an alto player actually. Sven Klang's Quintet. It's like one of the great jazz films because it's so real. It's not romantic at all. It's just brilliantly real. And he really liked this documentary, and I really like it as well. The opening thing with Ethan, me and Ethan at the beginning, I don't even remember. Martin, like 17 one-nighters, you know, can we play a bit less? I said, why? I came on tour to play. He said, no, you made me play that fucking upright piano. It's great. It's great. That was a great tour. And Jorge's really beautiful.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy. Yeah.
You probably know him. But
yeah.
He's just such a beautiful mediator as well. And, you know, and he was in my car a lot, and I said, look, because I haven't got a sat nav or anything. I said, can you help me out with the map? And he said, yeah, I can read the map. And Bobo used to love reading the map in the car with me and helping around England. Bobo loves England. And Ethan was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to look anything up on my phone because it's going to take, you know, it's going to cost me money. All right. But Ethan's basically working 24 hours a day when he's on tour.
I know, yeah.
I said, Ethan, we haven't seen each other on the tour. He said, no, I'm really sorry. I'm just working all the time, you know, doing his New York Times articles. It's
everything, yeah.
Blog, it's like that. It's incredible. And I love it all, you know. It's that.
He's amazing, yeah.
He's an amazing guy, you know. It's to see how he's developed from that time. Yeah. I met him. I knew there was something incredible about him at that time when he was 17. And we kept in touch. I'm diverting to him now, but we kept in touch, and I didn't hear from him in 10 years. And he happened to be playing in London with a Mark Morris dance company. And that's how I hooked up with him again. And we did a duo tour. And I did the album with him, My Ideal.
Yeah, I know. It's beautiful. Yeah.
And I said, I want to do a duo tour next year. Sorry, the Bad Plus is just happening. And they, you know, it's Columbia Records or whatever it was. Sorry, can't do it.
Yeah.
That was it. And he said this to me, you're sort of, you come around him significant times in my life. 17 years old, then 10 years later, Bad Plus happens, 17 years go by. He playing at Ronnie's with the Bad Plus, and I said, and he was leaving then already.
Yeah.
I could feel it. It was tired. He was a bit tired of it, you know. And we recorded him when he was in London. Quartet, Intention, with James Madden and Fred Thomas. And then I got a few gigs, you know, and he was tight. It was just right. It was just that right. And now
good timing, yeah.
And I did some, what did I do? Or did I just record then? I can't remember. No, we did gigs there. And Martin France did a couple, actually.
Oh,
yeah. Which is nice to hook those two up, because Ethan was a big fan of Django's music. And then it's happened again. We did that tour that was videoed, the film thing, which is beautiful. And then I said, oh, can we do it again next year? Both of them said no, you know, like, Ethan, I'm really sorry. I'm only going to do sideman gigs with Billy Hart.
Yeah.
The Elder Statesman of the Mark Morris Dance Company, and Jorge is just flat out with all these bands all day long.
Jorge,
right.
with Jorge, we did this interview, right? And it was amazing. We talked like for 2 hours, but to book the interview, it was like, I emailed him, let's say in June 2021, And then he was like, yeah, let's schedule it for 13th of August 2022. I was like, okay. And we actually did it then without emailing on 13th August because he was like, I'm it's teaching, gigs, everything's recording. I was like, man, wow.
He must be the busiest musician in the world then, jazz.
Yeah, I mean, good for him, but it was so funny, really, when you email someone, yeah, let's do it in 2 months, or I'm touring now, writing, whatever. Oh, sure. Or it was really like, yeah, 16 months later on that day, like, okay, at 9 a.m. Super. That's
wow.
Amazing, man.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? His thing. Yeah. So that's sad, but I bumped into him in Denmark. I did a gig in Denmark, which is another project I have that's just come out. I don't know whether you know about those. It's only come out digitally, but it's with Hans Carlo, who's a German piano player, lives in London. He's my boss, really. We've known each other a long time. He's head of jazz at Trinity Laban, conservatory where I teach the piano player. And then Anders Morgensen is the drummer.
Oh yeah, I know him. Yeah, sure. Yep.
And AC, Anders Christensen, who played with Paul a lot. So we've done 2.
Oh, beautiful.
Albums, all my music.
I have to check it out. Okay.
And said, let's play your music. That's really nice of him to give me that opportunity,
I have to check it out. Well,
so
okay.
It's called Universal Connection, the band.
Well, let me see. I have to write this down.
Thanks. Yeah, so there's that as well. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but we did that one gig in Denmark at the Copenhagen Jazz Festival.
Fantastic.
And I organised the tour in England, but I know it's only going to happen if I organise anything.
Yeah.
Anders Morgensen, I have to say, is totally on the case with everything. He's quite a good business guy.
Yeah.
There's that. I don't know what else we're going to talk about. I just realised we haven't talked about Jeff, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe next time. I mean.
Jazz.